Hello everybody, this is Dimitri, CryptoParadise.consulting. Happy to be with you on this Thursday morning, September 10, to talk about Bitcoin and how it reacts in the recent days. As you know, it went quite down on the markets, around 15-20%. So the subject I wanted to talk about today is a subject I talked about yesterday with some colleagues. Very interesting, and it was about how, what are the different scenarios, the possible scenarios for Bitcoin. So clearly one scenario which came up is the scenario where Bitcoin goes to zero. Second scenario is a Bitcoin that stays and navigates at small levels, doesn't really become something else than what it is today. And the third scenario is, of course, the Bitcoin going where we all want it to go, actually. The persons who own some Bitcoins, it's a scenario where Bitcoin, of course, explodes and goes very high and gets more and more attention and more capital. So let's talk about those scenarios. Scenario number one, Bitcoin going to zero. Is that even possible? Well, clearly the answer is no. Even though there is probably a very slightly chance it happens, in case maybe of a technological catastrophe, which would probably implicate other catastrophes, not only for Bitcoin. But this is a scenario that I don't even want to talk about. Bitcoin going to zero is quite impossible. And clearly for one reason, Bitcoin, as you know, is here and will not go away. It will be there in 100 years, in 200 years. So however people look at it, even if it's not really used, there will be a value. So scenario number one, just forget it, let's not talk about it. Scenario number two is a Bitcoin that stays where it is, or just goes down, maybe, well, anywhere between, let's say, $500 and $10,000 and stays there forever. Is this scenario possible? Well, that was the case yesterday, but when we talked about, we all agreed to say that even this scenario is quite impossible. Why is that? We have a Bitcoin that is already today has now conquered a status of being already a store of value. Bitcoin has a history where maybe for the first 6 years, 7 years, it was a meaning of exchange, more than anything else. Starting in 2017, when we had this bubble on Bitcoin, Bitcoin changed slowly its status, and it became, in the last 3-4 years, a store of value. It's the digital gold everybody is talking about. This fact cannot be talked about. It's a fact. The only thing that we can say is that, as you probably know, it is very, very complicated for a store of value where more and more investors go and invest their money in. It will be more and more difficult for this store of value to lose its status of store of value. When Bitcoin had a market cap of a few billions, it would have been possible that this money just goes away and goes somewhere else. When Bitcoin has a market cap of more than 150 billion, it becomes more complicated. And you can imagine that when we go above 500 billion, maybe 1 trillion, well, that will be the moment where Bitcoin will just has a position that you cannot get rid of. Exactly like gold. Nobody can imagine that gold will lose its store of value status. Never. It's there since 3,000 years. So of course the only question is that Bitcoin has a much a shorter history, and that makes it more, let's say, more volatile, and makes Bitcoin a much riskier investment than gold. But the return you can expect is of course much higher. So that was what I wanted to tell you today. We have probably a third scenario that has the most probability to occur, and on the other side, that's also the scenario where you're going to make a lot of return on your investment. So here we go. If you look at probability, there is of course always a risk involved. But if you look at the risk-reward ratio, I think we are in a very good position, betting on Bitcoin being and staying a store of value for the years to come. So that was my video today. If you like my videos, don't hesitate to subscribe on my YouTube channel or directly on my website cryptoparadise.consulting. Bye bye.